With that, we'll have a pledge of allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we'll call for a moment of silence. All right, we'll open it up for board member statements.
I know, Amy, you wanted to talk about your stickums?
I did. So meeting our board member goals of being involved in the community, I wanted to report back about the activities I have represented the board to. I was able to visit both Collier and Tres Rios and present our Positive Penny presentation, so that was super great. I loved seeing Collier's Business Academy, their business center, and how it looks now, and I'm super excited to see the changes that we've done to it. So I was great to see that. And then I said I went to Tres Rios. I didn't go to Tres Rios. I went to Estrella Vista. I apologize as I just looked at this. I loved going to Estrella Vista and getting to see almost all of their classrooms. And that was great to see all those kids and the questions. And I think they were the most polite group of students I've ever been exposed to. Like, I even said that a few times, because every time I handed a penny to a student, they were like, thank you, and I was getting dry of the mouth just saying, you're welcome, so that was great. I was able to go to the Littleton Foundation mixer this past week, and it was great to see our staff relaxing and getting to know each other and seeing each other outside of the classroom. And then I went to Country Place and was there to see their National Junior Honor Society induction. And I attended a few Wednesday ASBA webinars. And so that's always great to remind myself of the policies that are coming down the line. Fine Arts Academy, because that's where my kids go. I was very involved there and went to PTA meetings. I went to their end of the quarter awards assembly, the 4th grade field trip, their turkey trot, and I had an amazing turkey lunch there as well. And then lastly, I did, and I think this came to my Littleton email, but Education Forward Arizona, I attended their power hour that ASBA was presenting at. And I think that is it that I can check from my calendar.
Thank you, Amy. We appreciate you representing all of those, so thank you. Mr. Nilsson, anything?
Nope, I just appreciate Amy and all the rest of you and all the things that you're doing to keep things going here.
So I have a few. I know. So I also did the Positive Pennies at Trace. It was quite a joy, and had a story to tell about Mr. Blanton. For those of you that may not know, I got to give him a personal penny, which it was a good story. I won't share with it because I'll need a tissue. I will be attending ASBA. Dr. Freeman and myself, let me give your stickum, will be attending ASBA Thursday. We're sitting on a panel, a Q&A, talking about fostering positive board superintendent relations. That should be a kicker. So we'll see how we do. So if you're in the audience, a Q&A. So that'll be fun. And I also attended Turkey Trot. And while my grandson came in next to last, it was still awesome. My granddaughter, of course, came in third. So she was quite excited for, I think it was a 10-pound bag of potatoes is what she won. And she made sure we ate those on Thanksgiving. It had to be her potatoes. So that was a lot of fun. I did attend the lunch. I did not eat it, but it looked delicious. So there you go. All right. Do you have any stickums you'd like to share?
No,
Okay, wanted to give.
I would add, our new superintendent of public instruction, Tom Horn, likes to brag he was on the Paradise Valley School Board for 24 years. Kathy has passed him.
Yes.
So
I think that's why I was invited to sit on the panel. It's not because of my brightness, it's just because of longevity. But that's okay, I'll take no matter what you give me, right? But thank you, Dr. Freeman. I don't really admit to being that old. But at this time, we will turn it over for Dr. Freeman's reports and member recognition that we're going to be given.
We planned this evening to recognize a couple board members. One who is currently on the board and serving his last meeting at the dais, and one who is in the audience who's already served his last meeting at the dais, but we have not had a chance before to recognize his service and all of his contributions. So Mr. Nielsen is leaving the board. He's going to continue, oh my gosh, to serve on
my
Avondale City Council.
It's beautiful.
Yep. That's really nice, Ada. It's like nicer than anything I've ever got. Like,
I thought 24 years,
I-
but that looks great.
Has that got my name on it? Can I see it?
said, wow.
It is
You
very,
put her in charge of this. Curtis took a seat on the board after his wife Sandy passed and had made several years of contributions to our board and the board in Marana. Also serves on the city council where he also helps look out for us and helped put together a student recognition program for the council and some other things. So we appreciate his dedication and passion. It's my understanding, so correct me if I'm wrong, that both you and John wanted to say a few words of appreciation, and then we'll get your picture with your award.
That'll be fine.
so I would also, on behalf of the board, I've served with you for several years and appreciate everything that you've done. Without you, our bonds would have not flew by as easy as they did. So we owe you a lot of gratitude for your pounding, the people you know, asking for approval of those bonds. I won't say goodbye to you because I know I'm going to see you everywhere in the community because you serve it well. So thank you
I
on
appreciate
behalf
that.
of all the district. We
Thank you
appreciate
so
you.
very much.
Yep.
I guess I'd just like to say thank you to the staff and all that I've worked with for those many years. I think we moved here in 2004, and it was 2004 and a half that somebody found out that Sandy had been on Marana and got her up here and served many, many years here. And Dr. Freeman got a hold of me and says, have you ever done anything with collecting bond, the things needed for bond certification? I said, no. He said, would you be the treasurer or the president? And I said, yes. So I've been involved with, I think, 3 or 4 different bonds during that time period. And then, like Dr. Freeman said, I had the opportunity to take my wife's seat here on the council, on the governing board when she passed away. But I can tell you that she really loved and enjoyed being with you. And I have too. It's been a part of my heart. And I will miss you, but I won't, like Kathy says, I'm not going to go put my head in the sand and hide. I've already got some other things coming along that I'm going to go do, and a little bit more time here and there, and you'll see me around the community and some other places. So I just want to say thank you to all of you and appreciate all of it. And if you need any work with anything in the STEMs or anything in engineering and adding things like that, volunteer my time and effort. Just get a hold of me or get a hold of me through Ada, and I'll be willing to come in and at least tell you what engineers are supposed to do so that someday you may retire as an engineer, and then do things in the school district or wherever else you might be. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight. I became extremely nostalgic this morning when I got Ada's text gently reminding me that there was a board meeting tonight, and it's certainly good to be back in front of you all. I'm actually truly humbled by this recognition and so grateful that I had the privilege to serve our community as a member of the governing board. To my former board members and friends, I have so much respect for you, and I feel so fortunate that I had the opportunity to get to know you over the years. I was inspired by your dedication and passion for the parents, students, and teachers in our district, and proud that I was able to share the dais with such fine public servants. Dr. Freeman, thank you for your guidance and wisdom. I learned so much from you. During my time on the board, you always demonstrated remarkable leadership, guiding the district through some extremely difficult times. Every day we had the chance to work together for the students of the Littleton district was really the best day ever. Plus, and maybe most importantly, I am so grateful you are a Sun Devil and not from that other school. Finally, thank you to the teachers and principals for allowing me to be a small part in the amazing work that you did every day to teach, inspire, and care for the students in our district, like my daughters. When our kids grow up, they won't reflect on school board members like myself, but I can guarantee you that they will remember the many teachers that made a difference in their lives. I will be forever grateful for what you have done and the service you provide to prepare the next generation of leaders for our community. There's so many others here that I'd like to thank, but in the spirit of saving time, I'll just say that Littleton is comprised of wonderful people doing remarkable work every day, and I am so privileged that I have the opportunity to serve. And of course, this isn't the end of our journey together. You can find me every morning in the drop-off lines at Fine Arts Academy and Quinton, so please don't hesitate to reach out if you ever need a volunteer or assistance with anything, or Dr. Freeman if you just need someone to commiserate about ASU football. I wish you all happy holidays and welcome to the new board members, and I wish you best of luck. Thank you so much.
Well, John, we're going to ask that you stay there just a second. So on behalf of our governing board, we want to thank you. We've spent a lot of countless hours, sometimes behind closed doors, making some tough decisions. It looks easy to sit back here, but it's really pretty difficult. When there's not enough money, you don't know what to do, but we always walked away doing what was best for kids. And for that, we thank you. You were always level-headed, humble, and kind, when maybe there was a little heated discussion. So we will miss you, and if we're having more fun now, we miss you because of your humbleness. So enjoy whatever it is. I will see you in the line at Trace, and we will exchange waves. Thank you again for everything you've done. Thank you. All right. Now for the superintendent's report and member, oh, we did that. Did you do your report already?
No.
All right, well, knock yourself out.
I just wanted to add, I kind of recruited John. I can't remember where the opening was. And he was someone who left.
She left. She was like on the board for 2 months and then left.
Remember?
And he was working down at the Capitol, and I just happened to know his mom. And we were at a Capitol event, and I'm like, I need a board member. She goes, well, my son lives in your district, and the rest is history.
Good old mom.
So, yeah, thank you so much. They're a wonderful family, all exercising civic engagement and trying to make our communities better. So let me also say good evening to everybody. Buenos dias a todos. And I do want to kind of build on what President Reyes said about the great sorrow that we all went through with the passing of Charles Blanton. He was a beloved principal and teacher. He spent more than a third of his life in the Littleton family, over 30 years in education, and once again extend our sympathy to Jorgen, his brother Joe, and his parents. Charlie was a brilliant, creative, generous, and dedicated educator. He's passionate, gifted, skilled, and talented teacher. His students will remember him playing at the keyboard, encouraging them to succeed, being of service to the community, and his contagious smile. Charlie's final lesson to many is to do things that will lead to a full and positive life, to help people, and to have fun. Thanksgiving was received with increased gratitude in this post-pandemic autumn, and in appreciation that our students and staff are such a blessing to all of us. So thank you for their talents and commitments. At this year's annual Thanksgiving feast, which a couple members alluded to, Southwest Food Service served 1,606 visitor meals, people in addition to our kids. And so it was great to have that many families enjoying a meal at our campuses and seeing the wonderful things schools are doing. Thank you to SFE for their tireless service to our community. They do a lot to help out above and beyond. And as you know, our staff and students at our sites love to give back to our community. They've organized multiple events to celebrate spirit of the season and support those in need. Collier Business Academy and their partner school, Littleton Online Academy, are participating in 30 Days of Gratefulness, and they're challenging themselves to practice gratefulness every day through word and action. Country Place hosted their annual Thanksgiving feast and turkey trot and had an amazing turnout. Students sharpened their saws by running for distance, and their families cheered them on. The National Junior Honor Society held a food drive. They collected over 1,400 items, and those are going to St. Mary's Food Bank. At Estrella Vista STEM, the Student Council and the NJHS are leading food drives as well. Hallways are competing to see who can win free dress down days for the most food collected. Through their PTSA, they were able to gift families in need with gift cards to help support them during the holidays. Falcons at Fine Arts had their annual turkey trot with a holiday music playing start to finish line. There's so many donations at each grade level, and they had to overhaul winners receiving turkeys and pies and have several runners up. And potatoes. That music thing, that's like Rock and Roll Marathon, right? Or something, is that what they did? Firebirds had 9 lucky grand prize winners of turkeys donated by the PTSA, as well as various prizes provided by special area teams. And the Honor Society was working on fundraisers to support local pet shelter, as well as connecting with Superstar Kids to gather sports items and equipment for those in need. Quentin STEM Academy, the Sharks, participated in 2 turkey trots. Families were invited to join and run a few laps, and the students, again, during the day. So their student council is working on a food drive to help Mercy House, a nonprofit located right here in this area. And at Tres Rios, the Pumas partnered with the City of Avondale to organize canned food drives, support those in need. And finally, here at the district office, our cheer committee, in collaboration with Mercy House, is organizing a toy drive and a separate Friends Helping Friends donation drive for lightly used professional attire, toiletries, and non-perishable food. So if people want to make donations, they can do that through January 9th. Littleton's known for caring, but especially in the spirit of the holiday season. There are, of course, other exciting things happening at the schools, and it's hard for me to pick what to report, but I'm leaning for some news on the cool side. The Cardinals, Arizona Cardinals, read to Tres Rios first grade students as part of a very cool Mild and Cookies reading literacy program. Go Cardinals. I was a little disappointed to find out after the fact when I saw the cheerleader pictures, but you can't think of the superintendent all the time, I guess. Go Cardinals. At Quentin, first grade was given take-home reading book bags and a plush pet. Our youngsters are so excited to read with their cool new pet at home. First graders at Quentin also came up with really cool robots, which they were challenged to create a robot that could help someone, and the robots are showcased at an event attended by their families. At Country Place Leadership Academy, Third grade students held their first ever Balloons Over Country Place Academy parade. And students spent time learning about Tony Sarg, master puppeteer, who invented the first balloons for Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. Then using the balloons and colored paper, the students used their creativity to build their own balloons. The parade wound around through the hallways with students cheering, and third grade team looks forward to continuing the school tradition next year. I'd also like to thank all of the first grade teachers for having the superintendent come read to their classrooms and very cool holiday stories. I posted one of those. I don't know if you probably don't all follow me. Santa Bruce, the bear who didn't like Christmas. Great story. It's my first year reading that, and I really appreciate having that opportunity. Save the best for last. I'm very, very excited that so many events are coming back in person to our schools. So from holidays around the world to winter band concerts, Coco and Dance with Santa, annual holiday fine arts concert is going to be next week on Tuesday the 20th at 6:30 at the Fine Arts Academy Caffeinasium. After 3 years of digital concerts, lots of us can hardly wait to be treated in person to this great event. They always do an outstanding job. Please spend some time relaxing with your friends and family. Don't fight, just be nice. It's good for your health and well-being. Continue observing good hygiene habits, hand washing, covering your cough or sneeze with your elbows, staying home when you're sick. Don't take little sick ones coughing to the store. Wear masks in crowded indoor settings. Infection rates are up again in Maricopa County. And these are all things we can do to help keep each other safe. Our health workers and teachers alike will thank everyone for their efforts to contain the spread of the flu, RSV, and COVID, and help avoid our hospitals overcrowding again so we can start 2023 strong. For a close, I want to encourage you to reach out to an educator, healthcare worker, police, firefighter, and thank them for their service. To close, I want to thank Catherine Ballison with Donors Choose and the Donors Choose Initiative in general for multiple donations this month in supplies, learning materials, chairs, headphones, tools, equipment, and even gift cards totaling over $3,000. That's all I have this evening. Best wishes for a brighter 2023. Please stay safe and well.
At this point, we'll turn it over to Ms. Vanderwater for a program showcase.
President Reyes, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, I am excited to present to you our first program showcase for this evening. Tonight, Dr. Lonnie Fife, principal of Quinton STEM Academy for Health Sciences, will showcase their signature school focus through highlighting their health science class, the focus of the instruction, their mission, vision, community partners, and several exciting student testimonials. Through the showcase, Dr. Fife will have students share about what they've been learning in the health science class and students diagnosing a patient. Additionally, Quinton STEM Academy will showcase their Kids at Hope Student of the Month, 8th grader David Dominguez, as well as recognize a dedicated volunteer, Laura Covert. We are pleased to welcome Dr. Fife.
Good evening, President Reyes, members of the board, Dr. Freeman, members of the executive team, and guests. My name is Dr. Lonnie Fife, principal of Quinton STEM Academy for the Health Sciences. This evening, I'd like to share with you our showcase presentation for Quinton, in which I'll review our mission, vision, community partnerships, and highlight our new health science class. Through a collaborative effort with staff, we developed our current mission and vision. Our mission is Quinton STEM Academy offers the highest educational experience for students, building strong community through opportunities dedicated to learning, making positive and healthy choices, and showing pride in our kinesthetic classrooms. Students and staff are actively engaged in the learning process with collaborative discussions that empower success for the future. Phrases like highest educational experience, strong community, and engaged in the learning process were selected to specifically describe instruction at Quinton. As we continue through the presentation, connections to these phrases will be made. Our vision is empowering students for future success. Staff created this vision because we want to show our students that we want them to show success not only with us, but in all their future endeavors, whatever they may be. As mentioned in our mission, We want to develop strong community relationships with our educational and business partners. One of our academic partnerships is with Tolleson Union High School. They are currently sponsoring our school, so we may maintain our HOSA chapter, one of the few middle school HOSA chapters in the state of Arizona. HOSA is a student organization dedicated to helping students enter the health field. We are continuing our partnership with West MEC, a public school district dedicated to providing students with innovative career and technical education programs to prepare them for the future. Our students are scheduled to take field trips to visit their campuses and participate in some of the hands-on activities that they would get to experience if they chose to attend West MEC during their high school career. One of our newest partnerships is with Adelante Healthcare. Adelante Healthcare is a community-based organization that provides several communities with healthcare and resources. Adelante will provide our students with field trip opportunities to their medical facilities and have their health experts speak to our students about the industry. Franklin Pierce University and Sun Health are two organizations that we have partnered with in the past. Both partners have volunteered to support our health science focus by providing experts in physical therapy and geriatric medicine, respectively, to speak to our students about current and future trends. We are excited to continue with these community partners to provide our students with these unique educational experiences. This year at Quinton, we introduced our new science health class. The class is available to all students, kindergarten through 8th grade. Students in the class are learning about health and nutrition, human anatomy, common illnesses, dental health, health occupations, and medical engineering. Throughout the course, students are involved in researching various topics, gathering pertinent information about those topics, and presenting their new learning to their peers. The slides that follow are a few examples of the work that our students have completed. So here you can see some of the human anatomy drawings that our students completed. So they selected a major body system, they researched it, they drew it, and then they had to present to their peers the information. And then this was one of the most recent activities. They researched a common illness. So first they had to research what were some common illnesses, and then they get to choose one, and they created a wanted or a warning poster based on those illnesses. Okay. So medical rounds is a really interesting activity that our kids participated in, and the best way to show it is through a video. So we have a short video that we would like to share, and the video will highlight the benefits that our students believe the health science class provides for them, and then you'll also get to see a sample of a medical round.
It's about like learning about the body of sicknesses and like viruses. So like an example is like, oh, polio, or like
It's really good. I hope it finishes buffering. I'm jealous of your posters. I know. They're really good. The kids did a really amazing job.
it's about like learning about the body of sicknesses and like viruses. So like an example is like, oh, polio, or like rabies, or tetanus, or like the iron lung, something like that. The heart, the brain, like your skeleton and movements. So like, yeah, that's what the health classes about, like learning about your body. Have a health class in Quentin so you can learn more to be a doctor.
I got to learn about mostly like diseases and a bunch of rabies. That you can actually cure them, and sometimes you don't foam at the mouth. It's actually pretty fun. You get to learn new things every day.
Last quarter we were learning about sickness and the body system, and right now we're learning about the viruses that cause sickness, like influenza, which is like the flu, and like all the types that they have. And that's what we're learning about, and most of the parts that I liked were knowing the different types and more of the deadly causes and what, like, I want to be a doctor, so it's always good to know the things now than when you get older, so you also know it then. And it's useful because you could also get sick, and you could still go to the doctor, but you can also know what's going on. Medical rounds are basically having a patient and asking them what's going on with them to know what sicknesses they have and what's going on. They're important because some symptoms can be similar with bigger sicknesses and illnesses, but they might not be the same, and you don't want to jump to conclusions.
Miss Carmen, you may come. Okay, you can lay down. Okay, Miss Carmen, what brings you here today?
I have pain in my belly.
You have a pain in your belly? Yeah. Okay, so do you have any cramps?
Yes.
No cramps, okay.
And I have a headache.
You have a headache? Okay. Do you get any like eye irritation? You do? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any allergies to food or something else? You don't? Okay. Then, do you get dizzy when you work a lot? Yes.
a lot.
Okay. Do you have runny nose?
Yes.
A lot? Okay. Then, do you have any like sore throat? Sore
Yes.
throat? Okay. Okay. Do you have any other symptoms?
I have a headache. I'm cold. My hands is cold.
Hands get cold?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you nauseated? A little.
Cold, okay. What do you think it is? Okay, so based on your symptoms, you have a common cold, but I will prescribe.
What is that?
Common
I'm
cold.
dying?
No, you will not die.
Oh, okay.
Common cold is like when you work a lot or you get sick by the little viruses that get inside you. But it's not a problem. We both doctors gonna prescribe the medication for you and you will be all fine.
And how many days I take my medication?
You can take it for 2 weeks and then you come back again and then we will examine you again. Okay?
And I go back to the work, or you give me the...
No, for 2 weeks you should not go to work. You should take care of yourself. You should take care of yourself first. Oh, it's fine.
God.
Then that's it for today. Then we're gonna go. Bye.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
What is the name, doctor?
Oh, I'm Dr. Islam and she's
Dr. Bennett.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
Take care of yourself.
Okay, thank you so much.
We have very compassionate future doctors. Thank you for your time. At this time, I will address any questions or comments the board may have. So good, we'll watch it twice.
Well, thank you. I bet that was a lot of fun, and it sounds very intriguing. So good luck to those doctors or nurses or whatever they want to be. So that's a great program. They'll remember that forever. Is that 8th, 7th? What grade is that?
Those were 7th graders,
Seventh?
President Reyes.
That's awesome. How many went?
They all did it. Everybody in the class did
Wow,
that.
they all got to be a doctor?
Yes.
Oh,
And we had some parents come in. Mr. DeLesio actually was a patient for us, so we've had
How
quite a few.
fun.
Yeah.
That's great. That's good education. That's fun education. So thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Sosnick. 2 weeks off. I know. They're very nice. Thank you.
We're going to share our Kids at Hope Student of the Month and volunteer.
Hello, my name is David Dominguez. I am a student here at Quinton STEM Academy. I'm a student kid at Hope here because I like helping people and putting people's needs before my own. And I was always strive to be better than who I was yesterday. And my aces are my mom and my dad for who they helped me become today. And I would like to thank Quinton STEM Academy for choosing me to be their kid at Hope.
Good. You want to do it again, or are you good?
I want to do it again. I just need to say it out loud without the camera. Perfect. So my name is David Dominguez. And my name is.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lonnie Fife, Principal of Quinton STEM Academy for the Health Sciences, and I have the opportunity to share with everybody our Volunteer of the Month, Miss Laura Covert. Miss Laura Covert is an amazing member of our school community. She is an active member of our PTA. She signs up for every after-school event, whether it's trunk or treat or Hi, I'm Dr. Lonnie Fife, Principal of Quinton STEM Academy for the Health Sciences, and I have the opportunity to share with everybody our Volunteer of the Month, Miss Laura Covert. Miss Laura Covert is an amazing member of our school community. She is an active member of our PTA. She signs up for every after-school event, whether it's trunk or treat or holidays around the world in December. She also volunteers for every book fair. She's there, rain or shine, helping us in every way. She even has really great ideas to increase her PTA membership, and one of them is a little untraditional, but she volunteered her husband to dress up as a cheerleader to help garner attention to the PTA. She is just an amazing person, and we are so very lucky at Quinton to have her as a volunteer. Congratulations, Laura, on being our Volunteer of the Month. She unfortunately couldn't join us today. She's a bit under the weather, but we absolutely enjoy her.
Thank you, Dr. Fife.
Holidays around the world.
There's no call to the public, so we'll, oh, I'm sorry. B. Oh, read better, be better? Okay, and that is Ms. Vandewater?
President Reyes, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Freeman, I am excited to present to you our second program showcase for this evening. Mrs. Robbie Ann Musel, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, will showcase Read Better, Be Better, an after-school program that engages students as readers and leaders while focusing on reading comprehension strategies and skills. You will also hear from Ms. Sophie Allen Eckert, the CEO and founder of Read Better, Be Better, as well as see some of our students engaging in the activities and sharing how the program has impacted their lives. Welcome, Mrs. Musel.
Madam President, Dr. Freeman, board members, and executive team, thank you for this opportunity to celebrate our Read Better, Be Better program in Littleton ES Elementary School District. Next slide. Read Better, Be Better is an after-school program that we offer at 7 of our 8 schools. Our online academy does not participate just because of the nature of the program. As Ms. Vandewater said, the program is focused on reading comprehension standards in the 3rd grade, and it pairs a 3rd grade student with a leader. So our 3rd graders are called readers, and our upper grade, our junior high kids, are called leaders. And they pair together in the program and read books, and Sophie, who will be talking more about the actual activities that they engage in, but they get to engage in authentic literature every day and apply their reading comprehension skills. In order to support this program on our campuses, we have Read Better, Be Better coordinators on each campus. The staff members help the program by registering students, getting excitement for the program at the beginning, also help with supporting attendance. We have one of the best attendances in the program in the Valley, and collaborating with our Read Better, Be Better staff. I would like to thank all of our Read Better, Be Better coordinators for their support of this program. At this time, I would like to introduce Mrs. Sophie Allen Echart, to Chief Executive Officer of Read Better, Be Better. She will be sharing more information around the program and providing you with our amazing data. Sophie?
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Freeman, members of the board, and the executive team. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so proud to be here. I can't believe it's the first time, but it won't be the last time. I'm going to run through a little. Robbie Ann just did a wonderful, honestly, overview of the program. I'll run through just a little bit more detail from my perspective. I founded the program. We're a nonprofit organization based on the understanding that talent and is equally distributed, but opportunity and resource isn't necessarily all the time. And so we use literacy and leadership as our tool to help children on their journey to self-actualization. The mission, if you could go to the next slide, please. That one. Yeah, to connect young readers and youth leaders to inspire a love of literacy and learning. So you can see there's that connection between the two sets of students, the 3rd graders and the middle schoolers. Our values are be excellent and be kind. David Dominguez, who just in his video said, I like to put other people's needs before my own, was a leader in the program in spring 2022. So he is absolutely showcasing those values. So that was wonderful to see. Next slide, please. I'm sure everyone here knows, I know the district has a focus on literacy, but 3rd grade is that pivotal grade. So if you don't read on grade level by the end of 3rd grade, you're 4 times less likely to graduate high school. The situation in Arizona isn't where we want it to be right now. Where I think the opportunity is, and what kind of is our guiding star and what motivates us, is if you can get a student to read at grade level by the end of 3rd grade, there's an 89% chance that that student will graduate high school. So we prefer to focus on that statistic, and that is kind of our call to action. Next slide, please. It's also an achievable goal, we think. Our approach, so kind of we mentioned, it is a curriculum that's our own curriculum. It's currently Tier 4 evidence-based, and it's based around reading comprehension. We pair those readers with the middle school leaders. The comprehension questions are aligned with third grade reading standards. Really quickly, it's very simple. It's genius, but it's also very simple. The older student reads to the younger student, so that's where you get the kind of familiarization with the text, so you're creating a sense of comfort. The second read, the reader, so the third grader, is going to read back to the older student. That's when our older students model the strategy. So that's when we're building that pathway to educators, future educators. They get the chance to kind of be the teacher and to model whatever strategy we're doing. So whether that's asking questions or making connections. So they kind of model that for the younger student. Then on the third read, so every single session they're reading a book 3 times, there's value in that too. On that third read, that's when the little ones, they have their sticky notes and they're gonna share it's sort of what the meaning that they have constructed from the text. So they get to make it their own. And there's power in that too. You build confidence that way. Next slide, please. We have 25 books, so the curriculum is written for the books. And that is designed to highlight the specific strategies. Our strategies came from Stephanie Harvey, who's way smarter than me. So it's monitoring comprehension, which is basic metacognition, making connections, asking questions, and inferring meaning. The leaders are trained, but there's more of an ongoing training. On the first day of every semester, the leaders come first, so they have that first day of training. Honestly, so much of that is about setting standards and setting expectations, talking about what our values are, acting out those values. What do those values mean to you? How are you going to showcase those in the classroom? So you're kind of setting the standard really high. And then the third graders, because the curriculum itself is pretty scripted, it's meant to be implemented with fidelity by middle schoolers. So I wrote it to be highly structured. So you don't need to do too much training up front. We focus much more on kind of setting those expectations. And then we do roundup every single session. So every session, those middle schoolers are actually going to verbalize, this is what I saw my third grader do this session. This is how I saw my third grader improve. And when they're doing that, they're also, my staff are trained to take that moment and say, how did that make you feel to see that improvement so quickly? You made that happen. So there's that, yes, we recognize the readers in that moment, but you're actually having the leaders self-identify into that leadership and kind of, they made that change happen. It's really, really wonderful and powerful. And then they also do leader meetings. So they're kind of like teacher, like your sort of PLC type style. So how's it going? What challenges are you having? What are you going to do going forward? So it's kind of to give them that sense of importance as well. Next slide, please. So the data's really, really strong. This is our post-pandemic data. We're continuing to show positive growth against the comparison group. Some other pieces that I picked up. So the Dibbles Days is obviously a powerful indicator because that's a standardized reading comprehension test. We actually measure reading self-efficacy, which is, I think I'm better at reading. And the research behind that is, if you think you're better at reading, you're going to choose to read. And if you choose to read, you're going to get better at reading. So it's actually a much more sustainable growth statistic. And that is 80% of students read better than they did before. And the testing group just for last year is 1,100 students. So it's a really strong data set. Plus caregivers saying 84% of caregivers saying my child understands what they read better than they did before. And that was 225 caregivers that we got to answer surveys, which in itself I think is a miracle. And then the middle schoolers themselves, self-identifying as a leader, a data set of 1,100 just in that past year. So really strong data that we're continuing to show and continuing to monitor. And then next slide, please. And then Ravianne touched on this exceptional, honestly, attendance from Littleton. So I want to highlight that. And I also want to, but the way that was made to happen was a trusting partnership between Read Better, Be Better, and Littleton, which throughout a pandemic was us being both sides, being flexible, trusting each other, having shared values and aligned goal of where we wanted to go. The club sponsors that Littleton put in place have transformed this. They absolutely should be recognized, but so should the people who had the idea, because we've rolled out club sponsors across we're in 11 school districts, and we take ideas that are fostered in one district and we share them with other districts and we put them in place. if they're successful, and that is clearly successful. So that's really, really impressive. And then next slide, and this is the best bit. This is the best bit for Littleton, is the number of students here who have received the program in 3rd grade, who have then waited and come back in middle school to be leaders, which if I can like try and share without crying, that I wrote this program in my kitchen like 8 years ago, and I just said to Chris, I hadn't even envisaged that part of that happening, because we've never been old enough for it to happen. We were founded in 2015. So now there's not 30 anymore. There's 52 students in this district who've received this program in 3rd grade and have come back to make that change in another student's life. Is such a testament to the community that's been built here of kindness and of excellence and of service. Is just unbelievably powerful and makes me really proud. Here's some cool little quotes. I can leave them up on the screen actually for you to take a look at. And I'd love to answer any questions, or if you, yeah.
I don't have a question, more so than I am the parent of a 3rd grade Read Better, Be Better.
Really?
She's a 4th grader now, but she was a 3rd grader last year and did it. And she is so excited to be a leader. Like every year she's like, can I be a leader yet? And I'm like, no, you have to wait until you're a 7th or 8th grader. But Mom, I can read. And like the growth I saw in her in that year was just so amazing. And I just wanted to say thank you, because my daughter was not a reader before she started the program, and she loves it now.
Thank you. We are piloting a K1 program. I just went to look at it today in Creighton. It's run by 4th graders. I was blown away. I hadn't even seen, I developed it with the team. I hadn't seen it, and I just came from seeing it this afternoon. So tell her, so we're working on it. We're rolling it out in Tempe in January. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's definitely a program that's near and dear to our hearts. We talk about increasing our reading scores every single year, and it's exciting. I can tell you're excited about it, and it's great. It's definitely needed, and we're really happy that it's brought to our district. So thank you for all your work and dedication.
Thank you.
Sophie, I don't trust my memory so much anymore. Were you in a Current Valley leadership class or a prior one, or?
Flynn Brown.
Flynn Brown. So I just want to point out to the board all the work that she does in the community, raising money, philanthropy, advocating for kids reading. So her work is actually bigger than just the Read Better, Be Better program you see here, and thank you.
Thank you. So you're very modest. Thank you very much. You sound like people have lots of children.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophie. I'd like to end just showing a small video of our students at Tres Rios actually engaging in the Read Better, Be Better program. And also we have a testimony from a couple students and a program coordinator.
I enjoy working with Read Better, Be Better program, and what I enjoy most about it is seeing the children advance. So they come in a little struggling, but when they leave here, they're a lot more confident, a lot more motivated. They're not afraid to read.
JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly look away. We've got enough players for each team. When I was little, in Read Better, Be Better, it helped me by sounding out words. And now that I'm a leader, I help kids with the same problem as me when I was little. And I'm enjoying that very much.
Straight out of the
Read Better helped me read a lot better because I struggled a lot with some big words that I couldn't know how to pronounce, and that helped me a lot once I joined the program. And I couldn't like read fast enough, and I couldn't read certain words, and Read Better Be Better helped me, and then helped me improve my reading, so I could teach others how to be better and teach them so they don't have to struggle with reading. And that's why I'm here to help them.
Thank you again, and we look forward to continued partnership.
Thank you both.
All right, so I think that's our program showcase. So at this time, my understanding is there's no call to the public, so we will move on from that. Is there any items that the board wishes to be pulled from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll have a motion to approve or disapprove the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the items on the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no disapprovals, the motion will pass unanimously. Thank you. We're moving on to number 10, and Dr. Haid, this looks like you're going to talk to us about restorative behavior intervention.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'm going to let Mr. Verrill there we go. Okay, so we can go ahead and go to slide 1. Tonight, the board's being asked to consider creating a pilot of a restorative behavior intervention program to assist both students and staff with behaviors that have caused disruptions to the learning environment and that are outside the normal scope of classroom management. Prior to COVID, the district regularly examined discipline data and was working with ASU to look at equity within our progressive discipline practices. Since being sidetracked by COVID, we have returned to somewhat normal instruction. However, disruptive behavior seems to have intensified. Students have returned to school with higher levels of trauma and anxiety, which has led to more conflicts and less impulse control. Through this work, we've identified that there was a rise of disruptive behaviors, particularly in the lower grades, that include tantrums, oppositional defiance, eloping, which is running away, bullying, verbal abuse towards other students and staff, and an emotional disconnection that have led to minor aggressive acts. National data indicates we're not alone. Teachers report that nearly a quarter of their students exhibit disruptive behavior. In addition, these behaviors are occurring multiple times during the week or even the day. National data also indicates that the average amount of instructional time lost to behavioral disruptions is 144 minutes per week, or 14 and a half school days per year, and that is based on a 180-day school year, 7 hours per day. So similar to academics, character development or student agency should be approached through a tiered system of support. We have always worked on a restorative practice through progressive discipline, with equity being an important piece of our monitoring progress. We have engaged families and worked with them as partners for students to take responsibility for their actions in our school-wide discipline models. We have made social workers an integral part of our processes, and we have secured funding to have one on every campus. But there are still a few of our students that need a little bit more. Next slide, please. Research shows that roughly 20% of students need more intensive support, and we would like to provide that using concepts in a behavior intervention model called conscious discipline. This intervention model assists both children and adults in dealing with power struggles, defiance, verbal attacks, bullying, and physical aggression using the 7 skills you see here. The chart shows how each of the 7 skills of discipline, composure, encouragement, assertiveness, choices, empathy, positive intent, and consequences, when used consciously, yield critical core values and life skills. The 7 skills emerge from a foundation of the 7 powers for conscious adults, and as we become more conscious of our reactions to conflict, we can choose a different response. The 7 skills teach you to respond to conflict in a way that helps children move from resistance, lower center of the brain, to be more cooperative, and then move to a higher center. Obviously, this is a brief overview of the philosophy behind the intervention and just a component. It's not a program or a box that you buy, but it's a philosophy behind this intervention strategy. But I'd like to share with you what we envision that this might look like in a room on each campus. And we borrowed this idea from the Litchfield School District. They shared their model with us, and they have been using it for several years to address their own challenges with great success. So what would this room look like? It's a safe place for children to learn and de-escalate when they're in a highly emotional state. They connect with a trained adult in order to feel safe. This is not a permanent placement. This is a room where they learn skills, okay? It's a place to avoid our rush to think kids need to be in special education or be evaluated or placed there. And it's a place where kids can rewire their brains and be integrated back into their regular classroom and have coping skills. So this also gives an opportunity for the child to have a break, to learn coping skills, and also gives an opportunity for the teacher to have disruptions that may inhibit the learning process to help the school. So this also helps frustrated teachers, which we have had as we have more challenges recruiting and retaining teachers, and we think this would be an additional support for them. So the next slide is what this is not. It's not a punishment. It's not a silent room for children to work independently. It's not ISS. It's not non-structured student hangout where kids can ask to go because they're, like don't want to be in class anymore. It's not a place to do makeup work. It's a place for teachers to send students who choose to work on their behavior and who have been identified. And this is not a replacement for Make Your Day or PBIS, but rather a supplement, just like we supplement our math or reading curriculum with supplements to help kids who need additional help outside of what that core curriculum or core discipline model could do for them. So the restorative intervention room would align with our current student agency plan. This model uses the CASEL competencies that are also rooted in our All Things EQ character education program. The CASEL competencies promote restorative justice and are adopted by the Department of Education. So what might this look like? We are proposing that we use position savings to pilot a room like this in every school beginning in the second semester. Using concepts from conscious discipline, we would create a behavior intervention room so that students who are identified through a placement process would be able to learn additional coping strategies to then be able to integrate themselves back into the regular classroom setting. This would require that each student have a success plan that includes strategies and learning goals that target the behaviors that they struggle with the most. We would staff the room with a permanent sub, and you might remember earlier in the year we assigned those permanent subs. We've been very successful with these permanent subs integrating themselves as part of the staff, getting to know the kids, and so they're just one more staff member despite the fact that they may travel. But this permanent sub, the reason why we would like to assign that type of position to this room is when they're not working with students or don't have someone specifically in their room, they could assist with coverage in other areas of the school. We would then look at our discipline data at the end of the semester and compare it to previous data and make some recommendations for the board to consider a future recommendation. So we think this would just be a piece that we could look as another intervention to fully wrap ourselves around kids and support them in their educational journey. And I would welcome any questions that you might have about this. I know it's something different, but we think that this could really help as it has in the Litchfield district.
First of all, I love this idea. I just have some logistical questions. So this room, I'm assuming we would have certain students would be access to this room. It wouldn't just be allowed any student to be able to go?
That is correct.
And are the students placed in there for X number of minutes or hours a day, or is it whenever they are feeling themselves escalating or their staff is seeing them escalate, they are to go to this room?
That would depend on the success plan. So it may start out with, X amount of minutes per day, and then graduate out. Or if they need a calming situation, that they return after they have made it through certain benchmarks. A lot of this we see needed in the lower grades because of their impulse control and things like that. So it's really individual placement, yes.
Okay. And then, are we going to have any type of training for these permanent subs?
Yes, we would like to train them. We have several members on staff that are behavior intervention specialists. We have a psychologist that specializes in this type of plan, and so we would give them some training. Also, we can use a behavior identification piece to then set goals, and so we would have one staff member that would do the training. We would also make them this person part of our rapid response team on the campus and things like that, so they would be a familiar face, and if there was something that would escalate, they could also go in and do observations on someone that was like, I think I have, Amy's having some problems. Can you come in and help and see if she might be a good candidate for the program? Okay. Those types of things.
All right, and that was going to be my next question. What would be the process for a student to be put into this program? Because I think this is an amazing idea. I just would hate for it to not be available to all students.
We do want to make it available to all students, but not some place that would be a dumping ground.
Right. I understand. I've heard of other programs like this that was just, it's for students who have special needs and it's not available to our more typical students. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
They may be in transition or they may not.
Yes.
I guess maybe just one of the questions, Amy, if you ask it, I'm sorry, I'll ask it again. How does one get from the classroom down to this special room? Does the teacher escort them down there? Does the student say, hey, I'm going to have a bad day, I need to go down there? How the procedure would be to get from the room where there's a problem down to the special one? So that's one aspect of it. And is there a maximum number of students that could be in there? I mean, the teacher can only handle so many. And are they in there for the full day, half a day, 2 hours, 4 hours, something like that?
Yes, so yes to all of that. So it would depend on the students and depend on the age of the student because it would encompass the whole school. So a kindergartner might need to be escorted, but eventually work themselves up to a place where they request permission to have a timeout to go and touch base and talk to their safe adult and then return back. So it's age appropriate. There's not one set answer, but hopefully, for kids starting out that have a lot of impulse control, for example, would work themselves up into being able to remove themselves from a situation, identify those stressors, go down, talk to an adult, and then take themselves back to class.
Thank you very much.
I kind of had the same question, and if I'm saying it, I'm still trying to understand it. So how many kids can be in the classroom at a time?
We would need to limit that. I don't think there's a magic number, but certainly wouldn't be over, a normal class size, and that would be a lot because we would say a normal class size to be 25, but that would be a lot because kids are coming in and working on different things. So it's more of a small group type of idea, maybe 10 to 12, or there might be one in there, there might be 5 in there, depending on the time of day and the schedule for that teacher to work with different intervention groups, similar to a reading interventionist or EL specialists that work with groups. And then they have an opportunity to group kids together to work on certain skills.
Would there be an RBI class on every campus?
Yes, Madam President, that is what we would like to implement as a pilot this next semester.
And you're thinking kindergarten through, you said lower grades, so is that kindergarten through 4th?
We would do K-8. We just see a lot of the impulse control and the behaviors that need the intensive intervention in the lower grades. And just so I pulled a lot of research on that per se because they have the hardest time controlling their emotions.
And where do they go now?
Social workers help, the psychologists help, the school administration helps. They spend some different time. We call parents, we have step conferences, and so it's all working through our normal discipline processes, but they may be repeat offenders more often.
Gotcha.
And also in this model, which I touched on just briefly, there's some opportunities for parent education because lots of times they'll be, I don't know what to do. And so there's a whole component of a parent education piece in the conscious discipline model that we can help parents with these types of restorative justice practices.
And teachers, I'm assuming this was kind of talked about or vented out with different teaching groups or maybe through the LEA, however you did that. Was there feedback like, yes, this would be so helpful in the classroom?
Yes, and also we had quite a bit of feedback from our site administrators who said that this would be a great help to them they're high flyers that are going to be in this program because they're your intensive students and intervention kids. And so there was a lot of, I know Ms. Vandewater worked with them specifically as this is in her realm of work, and they were praising the fact that this would be an addition, not a supplanting of our current practices, but a supplement to, hopefully we can make them, the children be more successful.
Thank you. Yes.
I see in the minutes here that it says that it'll be a pilot program. Is that one school, two schools? Have you got any thought to where would begin and what the pilot program would be like? Or
So similar to how we did the classroom coverage plan, it would be district-wide in all of our schools, but we would look at it for the semester of time, bring back the data for the board to determine if this would be something we would want to allocate funds for, because right now we'll be using position savings for that.
Thank you.
More questions? If not, it's an action item if we're ready. If there's no more discussion, then I will ask for a motion to approve or disapprove the program.
I move that the governing board approve a pilot restorative behavior intervention program to begin in the second half of fiscal year 23.
I'll second that.
Hearing a first and a second, any disapproval? Hearing none, motion will pass. Thank you. Moving on to item 11, and that looks like that's yours, Dr. Freeman.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We're recommending 3 policy, regulation, and exhibit, I guess 4 actually changes. So I'll run through them quickly first and then see if there are questions on the content and the black lines that have been attached. So the first is with the policy BGE, and it includes an exhibit and regulation. It refers to the governing board policy manual when they were 2 large 3-ring binders that you kept at your house. And we haven't used those for quite a while, so we've updated that to reference that the policy manual is now online. In those days, we would give you pages to replace and to take out, and you had to like log it and guarantee that you had it. So if you had to go look at it, you had the right page. We haven't done that for a long time. So this just brings that section of your policy manual under section B up to date with practice. The form for sorting papers is completely deleted, all crossed out. The second one, BHC, is on communications, and it has to do with requests for materials or work from the board. We have a schedule of meetings and special meetings where we bring forward information about the operation of the board's goals, the district goals, and those things are scheduled on a calendar to spread the work out across the other work being done by staff. So for example, in the special meeting on the 4th Tuesday of January, we will cover the operations of the school district because we'll have 2 new members to the board. People who have already been on the board have heard that information before, so we'll try to highlight anything that's updated or new or stands out that way. And it also serves as a reference to members. For the next several weeks, staff are going through reviewing that, updating it so it'll be current. And the idea is to let them get that work done and present it all at once instead of present it 5 times if 5 members ask at different times. So how to request material through the governing board president or the superintendent if that is needed when you're in a quorum. And then BED is meeting decorum. We've been really fortunate in Littleton that we have not had really any decorum issues with the board, but it gives a little latitude to the president to manage the meeting. We believe it still protects free speech, but it also gives the president power to call out if behavior that violates board policies, procedures, or other things that are in your policy manual are called out so they can be addressed by the voters. The board doesn't have any power to discipline members. That falls to the voters to either elect somebody else or to recall somebody. And hopefully we never have to find ourselves in that situation. So that text is added kind of to the middle of that policy. That's a quick review, Madam President. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. The board's attorney has reviewed those and approved them.
Questions? No, my only question was if the board attorney had looked at them, so thank you for saying that. Appreciate it. All right, Dr. Freeman, it looks like you have the goals and monitoring report as information.
Madam President, members of the board, thank you. We had, when we finished the fiscal year 22 goals, some questions that came up from the board, and those that we could answer right away just by tapping into the data that had been prepared but maybe not presented at that meeting, and those that required additional research to pull together data have been pulled together for presentation for you this evening. And so what we have done is gone back to the presentation sequence that we used when we did the goal monitoring and which member of the cabinet was responsible for that area. So we have 2 of those from Dr. Haid for Guiding Principle 1, Guiding Principle 4, and 1 from Ms. Garrison for Guiding Principle 5. And I'd like to just let them go through ABC in agenda order unless you want to rearrange those.
No, that sounds fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. First, we'd like to visit Governing Board Principle 1, providing some additional data on board goals 1 and 3. 1 being the district ensures a rigorous, viable, and consistent curriculum for all students, and 3, students demonstrate growth towards mastery of Arizona College and Career Ready standards. The first slide is an example of consistent curriculum. So teachers plan tiered instruction for students according to the district's curriculum aligned to Arizona State standards for language arts, mathematics, science, history, social studies, and special area content learning. This was one of the examples that we wanted to pull as evidence that we do have that adopted tiered instruction and core curriculum. So our teachers utilize our core and supplemental resources to provide this differentiated instruction to match developmental level and skills of students. You have a comprehensive piece of this that comes every year for approval to the board. The adopted curriculum comes in a regular cycle every year, but the supplemental material comes once every year in July in a list that has been coming to you that way for a while. But just as a note, when you can look for that. The second slide, just to bring light to the equity standards that have been developed. This is just an example of our grades 1 through 4. These standards were established for grade level bands, and they provide expectations for school start, end times, minutes for each of the core content and the interventions, as well as our English language development models. These again are aligned to the Arizona State standards for core content, and teachers focus on student learning results when planning for delivery of interventions and extensions in their professional learning community. So just an example of a piece of a document that our teachers use to plan instruction. The next section of this presentation is on some learning outcomes. We looked at the state outcomes, but we wanted to bring back some of the outcomes that we measure within the district. So the first slide that you see here is our fast bridge percent of risk level for the 21-22 school year. So these are measured throughout the year in alignment to the state standards, helping us have some indication of how our children are going to do on the state tests. Our goal this year was to increase our percentage of K-2 students scoring in the low risk level. And as you can see at the beginning of the year, 23.7% of our students were in the highest. It's the best level. Low risk is good. And by the end of the year, we had increased that K-2 band to 31.9%, which exceeded our 12% goal. Taking a look at the second part of our English language arts level, for grades 3 through 8, we looked at the Lexile level progress. Student learning grade level outcomes are measured. Here, our goal, using Achieve 3000 to measure their reading Lexile levels, we wanted to increase that also by 12%. And as you can see here, we met that goal. We increased in every level with the exception of 6th grade, but the average was well over 12, significantly over 12%. We always have the highest gain in 3rd grade, that's to be expected, but there were significant gains in the rest of our grade levels, which helps see how we achieved so much growth in our state standard assessments because of the hard work our teachers put in and the hard work that our students put in. Moving to math, Dreambox is a supplemental program that we use for helping students with math. Our goal was to decrease the percentage of Dreambox K-5 FAY students in the no use and insufficient usage from May of 21 to 22 to less than 10%. We did not achieve this goal. What we did learn is that, and you'll see in the next slide, that we usually measure the success by the number of lessons achieved from students. But in this particular case, the company had not put that into a measure yet. And so what this is, we wanted students in grades 6-8 to achieve 4 lessons per week. So what this is telling us is our K-5 students are not achieving the 4 lessons per week, because if they don't, that's why our no usage or insufficient usage is coming. And so we are working on this particular piece again and looking forward to increasing our usage as we work with kids to get more lessons done, basically.
But does that mean then your math scores will suffer? If this is predominantly math, doesn't that mean that our math, you would not see great improvement?
Well, this is not core teaching, core lessons. This is supplemental. So teachers have, there's 2 options. You can put students on assign X amount of independent practices, and it's an adaptive program. So once they start using a different thing, it will set to where the student is and then level them up and provide them progressive lessons. But also teachers have the option to go in and assign certain lessons in Dreambox so that they can work on skills that they've determined they're insufficient in their normal direct or small group instruction. So this is a supplement. The next slide, our Dreambox 6-8 weekly completion rate. Our goal was to have students complete 4 lessons per week. And we achieved that goal. We had just over 4%, and our math scores were much better in math this next year, and so we're looking at maintaining or increasing that goal this year, but this is how we want to show the K-5, and the company has made a way that we can do that. So optimal use, we have increased on this one. And that is it for this section, but I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have before I move on to the next guiding principle on dedicated staff.
Please continue, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Amy, did you have a question?
And maybe I'm reading this wrong on here. Were you supposed to be going over PLC survey data or school letter grades, or is that in another time?
That is not this goal. That is at a different time. You're welcome. The next guiding principle that I will go over is 4, and that's dedicated staff. There was a question from the board about giving some data on attracting and retaining staff, and so we had an opportunity to have some time to break down certified and support staff resignations and terminations, and so that's what I'll be sharing this evening. So the first slide is the certified resignations per quarter, and we grouped it this way to see if there were some characteristics that we could find maybe to make a change in our retention. So as you can see from the data here, there are a large number of resignations in the third and the fourth quarters, which is indicative of certified resignations being effective at the end of the year. So one of the things that we've done as a retention strategy is to ask certified staff, we want you to stay, but if you decide to go, please go with grace and let us know that you're going so we can find a replacement, which we have been fairly successful with. So we ask staff to submit resignation as soon as they know that they're not returning so we can begin to look for replacement. The data for first and second quarter is going to mostly be people who meet one of the 3 criteria that we make a recommendation to all of you to release them, which would be a promotion, some sort of medical issue that's going to prohibit them from fulfilling their contract duties, or a family relocation. And so those are the majority of the reasons that you'll see the resignations in quarter 1 and 2. But in 3 and 4, those resignations are just mostly effective for the end of the year. Are there any questions on this particular slide?
Does not appear to be.
Okay. The next slide is terminations. Terminations are generally a result of teachers requesting to be released from contract and the board not approving the request. And that is because the employee does not meet one of the criteria that I just spoke about, family relocation, a medical issue, or a promotion. So these types of resignations occur generally in the first and the fourth quarter because people job hunt over the summer, then they come and say, I'm not going to come back. So you'll see that in the first quarter, those resignation or terminations that have come forward. And then in fourth quarter, that's because that has the summer months included, May and June. And so people who say, I signed a contract, but I'm not coming back, and they don't meet one of the 3 criteria, those would be the reasons of the higher numbers in the fourth quarter. Typically, quarters 2 and 3 they're not necessarily going somewhere else. They just have decided for one reason or another, personal reason that doesn't meet one of our criteria, that they're asking to be released from contract, and we don't recommend, and so therefore they're considered a termination. The next slide is support staff resignations, again covering fiscal years 19 through 23. So support staff resignations, again, are higher in the first and fourth quarters as either seasonal staff doesn't return at the beginning of the year. So they sign a wage statement before they leave in May, but then they found something over the summer that maybe they moved to a 12-month position or something like that, and so they don't come back. And so therefore, when they do that, we send their resignations forward to the board in that first quarter. July, August, are the big months. So that's why the numbers are bigger. In the fourth quarter, it's similar. We ask people that if they're not going to return, to submit a resignation, or if they don't sign their wage statement within a 15-day period, we go ahead and terminate them because we want to fill their position before the school year starts. So that's where the numbers and why they're bigger at the beginning and the end of the year. And you can see over the course of the fiscal years, it's pretty consistent that those trends occur. Fiscal year 20, those numbers are low. My hypothesis is that was the COVID year when we gave the big incentives to return. And so we did not have a lot of staff, one out of, fear of the unknown, and also through ESSER funds, we were able to give a pretty significant retention bonus. So I would say that's why the outliers are there. The last slide is support staff terminations. There are not very many terminations. They have to, in some way, shape, or form, either go through a progressive discipline policy procedure, or no call, no show for a period of 3 days will be a termination, or there is some egregious act that we have needed to terminate them. But as you can see, there are not very many, but I wanted to show that data to you as well. I think it speaks pretty well that our employees are honest and have integrity and stay with us. And with that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions before I hand it off to Mrs. Garrison to finish the last part of this item.
Mr. Nielsen?
I just have one quick question there. Exit interviews, do we ever do exit interviews with any of these ones that are resigning, or does that just come in their letters or anything? Can you find out what some of these things might be, or is that kind of...
That's a great question. So we do in-person exit interviews upon request, but we do a survey at the end of every year. We divide the staff between stayers and leavers, and then that way we can disaggregate the data based on any biases that people might have about staying or leaving, and then we review that data to see if there are any trends or things that we could change.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have a follow-up to that. So if I want to do an exit interview, but maybe I don't want to do it in person, can I do it through a SurveyMonkey or through a different, sometimes people are not comfortable coming in and just, is there another way for me to do an exit interview other than in person?
Yes, so the exit, we do SurveyMonkey. Mrs. Garrison helps me with that. That's what I was referring to. One goes to the leavers and one goes to the stayers. Okay? You're welcome. Mrs. Garrison.
Thank you, Madam President, Governing Board. I'd like to revisit Governing Board Principle 5, as there were questions asked, especially, I'm looking specifically at Governing Board Goal 10, where community resources, including those of the district, are available and utilized. While I was presenting highlights from the monitoring report from Chapter 5, a board member requested additional detail on meal services. The response from Southwest Food Excellence, along with our bus drivers, was extraordinary during the pandemic. I believe it was Member Contreras asked that we add detail to the report to show just how awesome our response was. So I'll be inserting the chart you see into Chapter 5 to show that during the 2020-21 school year, 57,350 breakfasts were delivered off campus, and an additional 57,350 lunches made it through the neighborhoods to our students. That's while we were in distance learning. The following year, during 21-22 school year, when most of the students returned to campus, we were still delivering to quarantined students. And last year, we had 6,680 breakfasts and lunches that were delivered. Now, I wouldn't anticipate having to include this type of data in future reports, but I'm glad the question was asked. Far too often, we don't document and celebrate when we go in above and beyond. So thanks to Member Contreras for asking that this be included, and I'll put this in Chapter 5.
Those are big numbers. Any more questions on that? So we're moving on to number 13. I'm excited.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. One of the big topics around public schools today is the aggregate expenditure limit, which most of us talk about in the vernacular, the AEL. The constitutional expenditure limit was put in place by voters in 1980, somewhat in a response to things that were happening around the country, including Prop 13 in California, and there was a push for the voters to bring that exact same proposition to Arizona. The constitutional limit on expenditures was passed by the voters instead. The same year, a highly skilled and informed team of finance, business people, and policy people put together the funding formula that most of us are familiar with today, which has numerous moving parts of revenue and expenditures, but includes an expenditure limit. It is the appropriation limit passed by the legislature each year. It's tied to a number of factors that relate to the amount of property, the size of your enrollment, things that constantly change. And at the time, I know in particular because I was at a meeting where Alan McGuire had talked, they told people they didn't need 2 expenditure limits passed in the same year. But the AEL was simple and straightforward, and the funding formula is complicated and challenging to understand. Now, in the meantime, the legislature's made changes to the formula. They've tinkered with it and changed prior years and current years and deleted the cost of living adjustment and some other things. They also added Prop 301 that went to the voters, and then it was passed by the legislature. They added charter schools, they've added vouchers and STOs, and a whole bunch of other things have happened since 1980 to make the difference between these even more convoluted. It was based on inflation from a baseline amount from 1980, but there are several different ways that the Joint Legislative Budget Committee can calculate inflation. Inflation isn't used the same for all of the laws relating to education. So when you inflate the number, depending on which formula you use, you can come up with a different answer. What's happened is the board's aware is the AEL, or the aggregate expenditure limit, and the appropriation have not matched for the last couple years. When that happens, according to the constitutional amendment that was passed, the legislature needs to override it. Now, what's interesting is some determinations have been made about things that are included and things that are excluded from the AEL, but there's nothing in the constitutional initiative that came forward that defines those. So those have been somewhat political and policy initiatives. There is a constitutional limit on all of the spending, and I think Mr. Nielsen can correct me if I'm wrong, commonly referred to by cities as home rule. And so each city is able to go to the voters and override the expenditure limit that was put in place in 1980. And I think Avondale passed theirs by 70% or something like that. It was a pretty significant number. Someone decided all of the school districts should be aggregated together and that we shouldn't go out for a vote to have home rule as a school district because the appropriation from the legislature goes to the Department of Ed for our equalization aid. And so there's only 18 school districts that don't require equalization aid. So we are aggregated together, causing us to need a 2/3 majority of the legislature in the fiscal year that the authority exceeds the AEL. That's a quick summary of how that works. So we are in the current year $1.4 billion in authority as a state in the public school system over the AEL limit. And we went through this last spring. The legislature has to override that before March, and I think last year we went right up to the end of February. If you were watching the news, the media did a great job of images of scorched earth and atomic bomb mushroom clouds going off if this wasn't done. The economy of Arizona is big enough to absorb this, but a lot of the communities in Arizona aren't. And in a lot of places outside Maricopa County or Pima County, school districts can be one of the biggest employers in a community. And if all of those people were to suddenly go home in April and have no earning ability and therefore no spending ability, it could have a dramatic impact on a lot of Arizona's communities. So there is a lot of work happening right now amongst school district finance people about the funds that are included and excluded, what districts might be able to expend from the excluded line. But one of the things that we're gathering right now is that varied amount of excluded cash and carry forward is really, the range is really broad across school districts. So some people have been able to carry some cash, some people have none. Some schools would close right away and have to turn off the water and the power. Some could pay to maintain survival things. Some probably would have enough reserves to stay open, but probably not 2 years in a row. So the politics of this are extremely important, and until it's resolved permanently, it becomes an annual issue. Unless the legislature were to permanently reduce the appropriation to education by $1.4 billion going forward, and that would be about a 17% cut, we would essentially be operating with 17% less money all year, this year, next year, and years to come until those inflation numbers caught up or matched up, rendering the appropriation of the legislature basically null. So the political climate of the state has entered into this discussion. There was an agreement between governor's staff and legislative leadership, which was pretty mixed up at the end of the year because there was, as people are aware, some rancor within both parties, that when certain members voted to approve vouchers, the governor would call a special session to override the AEL. They waited to hear the resolution of the Prop 208 court case, and when that came out, they said they weren't sure they had the votes. Today, what we're hearing from the Republican caucus and the executive is that there are some other concessions they want for calling that session on elections and election laws. Some of those don't sound terrible. It's getting results back to people faster, so maybe not dropping off a mail-in ballot on the day of the election, but the Saturday before, so they have time to look at the signature and some things like that. But also border security, Prop 400, the abortion law controversy, and increasing the value of vouchers now that everybody has one. I'm sure members are aware, but I don't know about the audience. Already this year, roughly 5,000 vouchers have gone out, giving parents over $30,000 per pupil to pay for their students' education, which is far greater than we have here. In fact, if we did 25% vouchers for all of the students that would otherwise be excluded for the fourth quarter, we would actually have more money in vouchers than we have in appropriations. So what we're doing is working with Governor Ducey to see if we can get this called prior to the end of the year with the legislature that appropriated the money. Once we get into January and the new legislature seated, it's no longer the legislators that approved the appropriation in the budget. So the ownership is a little different, and the governor's the one who made the agreement. What's happening right now is, of all those issues that I've shared with you, policymakers and party leaders, business community, and other interested parties are working behind the scenes to try to figure out what kind of things need to be moved or not moved to get that session called. We're concerned that once we get into January and the new legislature convenes, there will be a whole new set of political things that need to be resolved and probably run right up into the end of February again, and possibly even not approve it, depending on the demeanor of that group. Again, you need 40 votes in the House and 20 votes in the Senate to make that work. We wanted the community to be aware, one, of what some of the issues were, two, that we are attending to them and working with policy leaders and working behind the scenes to try to reach some resolution, and three, keenly aware of the consequences if we move into the next legislative session and go very far. on what confidence our community and our staff would have in our ability to keep our commitments to their contracts. What Mr. French and I will do as time goes on is put together sample financial alternatives to bring to the board. And the final time that would need to happen, if it's not done, is we would need to amend the budget in March to implement the new budget in April. So we have time to talk about it, but we also want to give time to policy leaders to work things out in the hopes that we don't have to do that work. And so this is just an information item tonight. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions if members have them, but I'm afraid I may have more questions than answers myself.
Hearing none. It looks like you're going to cover the election outcomes.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, the November election, as people are aware, that Littleton had board election seats up, but we didn't have any other funding questions or organization questions. So we've recognized the election of Rachel Barnett and Marcus Cisneros. Rachel's at the dais tonight because she's filling a seat that had been vacated, and Marcus will occupy Mr. Nielsen's seat at our next meeting in January when he's completed his term. 53 school district questions were presented to voters across the state. Almost half of those were maintenance and operation override questions. And that's important because next November we will need to renew our M&O override. It's 15% of the formula, the standard formula of the budget, and plays a significant role in our expenditures for special programs and for additional compensation of staff to try to attract and retain them. School district voters also had 15 Class B bonds. That's the new class of bonds since the legislation was rewritten to go out and borrow money for capital projects, and 7 school districts had capital override questions. There were also some property acquisition and sale things. I think maybe the high school district did a land exchange. I thought I saw that on the ballot. So what's interesting is not all of the trends bear out to be the same as they had in years past. For M&O overrides, 80% passed. That means 20% didn't. And I think the West Valley fared pretty well in that. Only 60% of bonds pass, and that's usually a higher number because people realize they're trading that debt for real property. And 86% of overrides passed. That usually performs the lowest and actually outperformed both of the other categories. So that's interesting, and there were some other questions. There were some questions on West Met Career Technical Education where, for instance, I think Natterburg joined the CTED but didn't pass their bond, so I don't know how they're going to do that program. There's some things for those of us who put those forward to members to vote on that don't necessarily make sense, and I think depending on campaigns and people's pocketbooks, we're concerned about the rate of inflation and people's income and those kind of things, and we're relieved not to be on the ballot. But I don't know that the financial pressure is off everybody in our community by next November either. So I think really the campaign to renew that override, which is essential to our operations, begins tomorrow and runs all the way through next November. That's a quick overview. You have a lot of those numbers in the details of your item. I'd be happy to try to answer any additional questions or go seek some additional information if members need that.
Questions? Hearing none, we'll move to item 15.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. What we have in the next item is what the management team lovingly refers to as the brick wall. And so what we told you when we first showed you the brick wall is we'll bring it back if it changes. and of course, it's an evolving document. It allows the board to see things that the management team is working on and things that are going to be anticipated for consideration in the planning calendar ahead. So we're in the December meeting now. But in January, it's pretty routine that we reorganize the board and do attestations and continue with policy changes as needed. We think that because we're going to enter into either an agreement with a third party or to do an international baccalaureate program, we'll have curriculum materials to review. So that'll initiate then, and then those will be up for 60 days. We're going to report mid-year progress on the school's IAP goals that you heard in the fall, and then again wrap that up later. So we'll have at the special meeting info on the district organization and operations goals, and we're paying close attention to enrollment. We thought we'd have more enrollment growth based on the housing starts going up. And so we're working with a demographer to see if we can dig into what kind of changes may be happening in the order of communities that way. But you can see as we go down through the wall working on payroll calendars, policy changes, benefits, salaries, all of those things will emerge through the spring as we listen to the legislature. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see bullets on things that the staff are working on at the same time to attend to or to prepare so that that information is ready for the board to consider, digest, and potentially have questions about. You can see we've kept 301 component 4, which you consider annually AEL considerations depending on how that's going, the ongoing adoption. So all of that work is happening. If we go to the next page, you can see how we kind of plan to wrap up the spring through March, April, and May. The program for the board gets a little lighter if we do get those things resolved in February and March. If the legislature is struggling to reach agreement or majority on a number of things, we think we might have a very late legislative session, which pushes a lot of that stuff back. So what you would see is things that didn't get done in February and March may get pushed into April and May or even later. And we may need to do a tentative budget. There is some talk down there of if they can't reach agreement, just doing another, what they call during COVID, a skinny budget, which is they don't do anything but kind of renew status quo. And then we have to guess what might happen in July or August. And once again, at the bottom, work being done by staff. So this is not static at all. Things may change and they may move around, but it's a look ahead for the board to see all of the things that need to be considered in the spring and moving forward to prepare for fiscal #24. You probably can spend some time on your own. I don't want to read it to you, insult you that way, but A is for action. So we had scheduled for stipends and addendas and salaries and benefits all to have action in April. If we're not able to do that before. And so D is discussion, A is action. So a lot of those where there's going to be something new or something changes, we've scheduled a discussion of the board the meeting before they would have action, and sometimes maybe more than one meeting. So it gives you time to make some consideration about those recommendations. I'm happy to try to answer any questions, or if there's comments or things that aren't included you'd like to see on there, you can let me know or let President Reyes know, and we'll be sure to try to keep you informed and be as transparent as possible.
Any questions on hearing none? At this point, we're moving to number 16, Dr. Freeman.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Each year, we establish a member of the board to serve in ex officio capacity as an advisor to the Education Foundation. January, we'll be doing reorganization of the board, president, and other officers as seen fit. But tonight, what we'd like to do is get a motion, get somebody started to serve in the calendar year on the foundation board to advise them on incentives and activities and those kind of things. Now, I do want to add that When this was put on the agenda, Ms. Contreras expressed interest, and she's not here tonight to say anything, so I felt like I should let the board know that she would be willing to serve in that capacity. Somebody still, however, has to make a motion and a second for that to happen. And just so you know, like, I know in the past we've nominated people who weren't president and seconded it. And they found out later, but she would be okay with that.
Welcome. We'll let you'll let her know?
Yes. She can't talk right now.
I know, thank you. Thank you. So we're going to turn this over to Mr. Price.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the governing board. Tonight, I'd like to discuss the Lake End Prep Instructional Services RFP that the board had previously allowed the district to issue in a prior meeting. The RFP was due back to the district Monday, December 12th, yesterday. The district received one response and would like to ask the board to allow us to enter into discussions with the respondent to receive a best and final offer from the respondent. This would allow the district to discuss scope of work and allow for us to reach a mutually beneficial contract with the respondent that would be reviewed by the district's attorney prior to coming back to the board for approval. So with that, I'd like to answer any questions. I believe there's also an attachment to the item that just shows a timeline of an alternate timeline depending on if the board approves the issue or the award of the RFP, or if the district goes with a IB program.
So this is asking for the board to, tell me again what you're doing.
What we're doing, Madam President, is asking the board to allow the district to enter into discussions with the respondent of the RFP to come up with a best and final offer.
So this would not be accepting the offer, it's merely the next stage of moving us forward to review the final offer.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate the clarity. questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion. Move that the governing board approve the district to enter into its discussions of a best and final offer with the respondent of the Lakin Instructional Services RFP that is mutually beneficial and developed into a contract that is approved by the district lawyers.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. I'll do a roll call for this one, please.
Mrs. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Nielsen?
Yes.
Mrs. Sashanek?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Barnett?
She can't vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yet.
Tomorrow.
But it was nice of her to say that.
Thank you. We appreciate that individual roll call. At this point, it looks like we're going to move, if the board so desires, to recess into executive session for the discussion of the superintendent's evaluation and performance goals.
I move that we convene an executive session pursuant to ARS 43.1.03A1 for the purpose of discussing the superintendent's evaluation and performance goals.
I have that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Vote, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hearing none, motion passes. We'll move into executive session. You're welcome to stay, and we'll come back out and announce our findings.
No action will be taken when
Well, our findings is no action.
you read this. You have to say that.
Oh my gosh, what time is it? 8.
It's getting late.
The governing board will not take action after reconvening, but we will come back out here
To say goodnight.
to say goodnight. Maybe.
All right.
Yep, they want to stay there.
Cars are parked